Can a person truly escape the shadows of their past? Or are we forever prisoners of the choices we made in our darkest moments? What invisible chains keep us bound to versions of ourselves we've outgrown? Is redemption possible for those who have fallen so far that hope seems like a cruel illusion? Or does every soul contain the seeds of transformation, waiting patiently for the courage to bloom despite the harshest conditions? Hello, everyone. Welcome to Universal Life Stories. Today's story reveals the extraordinary power that lies dormant within ordinary people who refuse to let their past define their future. You might feel trapped by your own mistakes, believing that some doors can never be reopened once closed. This profound tale could be the key that unlocks a future you never imagined possible. While listening to this story, we will discover timeless truths about resilience and renewal that can transform anyone willing to believe in second chances. So stay with us till the end. In the heart of a city where second chances felt as rare as shooting stars lived a woman named Grace. At 42, she carried herself with the careful posture of someone who had learned to navigate the world while bearing invisible wounds that had never fully healed. 10 years had passed since she completed her prison sentence for embezzlement, a crime born from desperation when medical bills for her dying mother had overwhelmed her meager salary as a bookkeeper. Though she had served her time and paid her debt to society, Grace discovered that forgiveness from the world came much harder than forgiveness from the courts. Every job application seemed to hit the same wall when background checks revealed her criminal record. Landlords would initially show interest in her rental applications until the mandatory disclosure about her felony conviction sent them searching for more suitable tenants. Even volunteer organizations, places where she hoped to give back and rebuild her sense of worth, would politely decline her offers of service once they learned about her past. Grace had found work at a small coffee shop whose owner, Mrs. Patterson, was one of the few people willing to look beyond criminal records to see the person standing before her. The pay was minimal, barely enough to cover rent on her tiny studio apartment and basic necessities. But Grace approached even this humble work with quiet dignity and meticulous care. She arrived early every morning, stayed late every evening, and treated each customer with the kind of genuine warmth that seemed to brighten the entire atmosphere of the little shop. But despite her gratitude for Mrs. Patterson's kindness, Grace felt trapped in a life that seemed permanently limited by her past mistakes. She watched younger employees at nearby businesses advance in their careers while she remained frozen in place, her potential seemingly capped by a decision she had made during the most desperate period of her life. The weight of knowing she could offer so much more to the world while being allowed to contribute so little had begun to feel like carrying stones in her chest that grew heavier with each passing day. The turning point came on a rainy Tuesday morning when Grace noticed a woman sitting alone in the corner of the coffee shop, tears silently streaming down her face as she stared at documents spread across the small table. Something in the woman's posture, the particular quality of her despair, reminded Grace of herself during those dark months before her conviction, when the walls of impossible choices had been closing in from all directions. Without fully understanding why she was compelled to act, Grace approached the table with a fresh cup of coffee and a packet of tissues. "I don't mean to intrude," she said softly, "but you look like you could use both of these." The woman, who introduced herself as Janet, looked up with eyes that held the same haunted quality Grace recognized from her own mirror during those difficult years. Janet explained that she was facing bankruptcy after her husband's unexpected death had left her with overwhelming medical debt and a small business she didn't know how to manage. The insurance had covered far less than anticipated, and creditors were circling like vultures. She felt stupid, overwhelmed, and completely unprepared for the financial complexities that had suddenly become her responsibility. As she spoke, Grace felt an familiar ache of recognition for the particular desperation that comes when life's circumstances seem to demand more wisdom, strength, and resources than we possess. Instead of offering empty platitudes or quick solutions, Grace sat down across from Janet and began asking careful questions about her situation. Years of managing her own financial recovery had given Grace an unexpected expertise in navigating complex debt situations, understanding creditor negotiations, and finding resources that weren't immediately obvious to those in crisis. As she listened to Janet's story, Grace realized that her own painful journey had equipped her with knowledge that could genuinely help someone facing similar challenges. Over the following weeks, Grace began meeting with Janet during her breaks and after work, helping her organize financial documents, research debt consolidation options, and develop a realistic plan for saving the business her husband had built. Grace discovered that she had developed an intuitive understanding of financial strategy that went far beyond her original bookkeeping training. Her experience with loss, desperation, and recovery had given her insights that couldn't be taught in any classroom or learned from any textbook. Word began to spread quietly through the community about the coffee shop employee who had helped Janet avoid bankruptcy and keep her business afloat. Other people facing financial crises began approaching Grace, initially with hesitation, but increasingly with hope as they witnessed the practical wisdom she offered. Grace found herself providing informal financial counseling to struggling families, helping them navigate systems that had once seemed impenetrable and overwhelming. The remarkable transformation in Grace's sense of purpose was matched by an equally profound shift in how others perceived her. People who had once seen only her criminal record began recognizing her as someone who possessed hard-earned wisdom about redemption, resilience, and practical problem-solving. Her past, which had once felt like an insurmountable barrier, gradually began revealing itself as the source of her greatest strength and deepest compassion. Mrs. Patterson, who had watched this transformation unfold with quiet pride, approached Grace one morning with a proposal that would change everything. She had been observing how Grace's informal financial counseling was helping people throughout the community, and she wondered if Grace might be interested in transitioning from coffee service to running a financial counseling service from a corner of the shop. Mrs. Patterson offered to help Grace obtain the necessary certifications and licenses, recognizing that her employees' combination of technical knowledge and lived experience created value that couldn't be replicated by conventional financial advisors. The idea terrified Grace initially. Starting her own business felt impossibly ambitious for someone with her background. The voice in her head that had whispered, "You don't deserve success," for so many years rose up with familiar doubts and limitations. But alongside the fear, Grace felt something she hadn't experienced in over a decade. The stirring of authentic hope, the sense that her life might still hold possibilities she had never dared to imagine. Grace spent months preparing for her new venture, obtaining certifications in financial counseling and debt management while continuing to work at the coffee shop. She studied at night, practiced with volunteer clients during weekends, and slowly built the confidence that comes from discovering we are capable of far more than our circumstances have suggested. The process of preparing for her new career became a form of meditation, a daily practice of choosing growth over limitation and possibility over resignation. When Grace finally opened her financial counseling practice, she made an unconventional decision that would become the foundation of her unique approach. Instead of hiding her criminal record, she chose to include her story as part of her professional biography. She wrote honestly about the desperation that had led to her conviction, the lessons she had learned during her incarceration, and the journey of rebuilding that had taught her more about financial recovery than any traditional education could have provided. The response was extraordinary. Rather than being deterred by her past, clients were drawn to Grace precisely because she understood desperation from the inside. They trusted her advice because they knew she had navigated similar darkness and emerged with practical wisdom about survival, recovery, and renewal. Her criminal record, which had once seemed like a permanent barrier to professional success, became her greatest credential for helping others facing their own financial crises. Within 2 years, Grace's practice had grown beyond anything she had imagined possible. She was consulting with families throughout the region, speaking at community centers about financial recovery, and training other counselors in her unique approach that combined technical expertise with deep empathy for human vulnerability. Local newspapers featured stories about her remarkable transformation, and social service agencies began referring their most challenging cases to the woman who understood that behind every financial crisis was a human being deserving of dignity and hope. But perhaps the most profound transformation was in Grace herself. The shame that had weighed on her shoulders like a heavy cloak for over a decade had gradually lifted, replaced by a quiet pride in what she had built from the ashes of her former life. She had learned that redemption is not something granted by others, but something we create through our choices, our service to others, and our refusal to be defined by our worst moments. Grace began speaking at prisons, sharing her story with women facing their own crossroads between despair and possibility. She would tell them what she wished someone had told her during her darkest hours, that our past does not have to be our prison, that every mistake contains within it the seeds of wisdom, and that the very experiences we most regret can become the source of our greatest gifts to the world. The Buddhist teaching of transformation through suffering had become real in Grace's life, though she had never studied formal Buddhism. She had discovered through her own journey that pain, when met with courage and compassion, becomes the raw material for wisdom. Her criminal record had not disappeared, but it had been transformed from a source of shame into a testament to the human capacity for growth, redemption, and service. Years later, when people would ask Grace how she had overcome such overwhelming obstacles to build a successful practice, she would smile and share the truth she had learned through her journey, that we become imprisoned by our past only when we allow it to define our future, but when we choose to see our mistakes as preparation for serving others facing similar challenges. Even our worst moments can become doorways to our greatest purpose. Grace had defied her past not by escaping it, but by embracing it so completely that it transformed from a burden into a bridge that allowed her to reach people others couldn't help, to offer hope to those who had given up on second chances, and to prove that no one is ever too lost to find their way home to their own dignity and purpose. Her story became a living testament to the truth that redemption is always possible for those courageous enough to believe they deserve it and committed enough to create it through daily acts of service, integrity, and love. Grace had learned that we don't need to be perfect to be valuable. We don't need to be without scars to be beautiful, and we don't need to have a spotless past to build a meaningful future. If this story stirred something deep in your heart, give it a like and share your thoughts in the comments below. What past mistake have you transformed into wisdom? How has your greatest failure become your greatest strength? Your courage to share might inspire someone else to see their scars as sources of power rather than shame. Subscribe to Universal Life Stories for more transformative tales that prove redemption is always possible. Until next time, remember that your past is not your prison. It's your preparation for becoming who you were always meant to be.